would you respond to someone who says their vote doesn't matter?
This is a very tough question, okay? I want to give sort of a two-part answer to this question.
Okay.
I think that it's very disingenuous for someone like a political scientist like me, and to not acknowledge that the way our institutions and rules are set up, that some people's vote matters more than other people's vote. If I were to not acknowledge that, what I fear is that then young people may say, well, that's just poppycock. That they're like, look, I know that my vote doesn't matter. And they could point to these instances of how it doesn't matter, and then they would say, why should I believe anything else he's saying? And so I want to be very clear that yes, let me give some examples of that before I get to the second part of why you should go ahead and vote anyway. If you take, for instance, our congressional districts, all right, we have 435 congressional districts in this country, and so and those are all allotted to each state based on population and the census that happens every 10 years. Okay, and then what happens is the state legislatures draw districts, and they draw those districts for each congressional seat, and the state legislatures usually is partisan. It's one party's in control or another party, and so they try to draw those districts to their advantage, called gerrymandering. Okay, and so what may end up happening is, what actually does happen is it turns out that a lot of those districts are not competitive, meaning that they are disproportionately populated with people of one party or the other. And so when that happens, it's not just the minority party vote that is sort of diluted, as citizen vote that is sort of diluted, but it's also the majority party citizen vote that's diluted. Because if they do or don't turn out, it's sort of predetermined who's going to win anyway because of the disproportionality in the district. Okay, that said. Okay, and we could find other examples. You could say electoral college, similar kind of thing. You could say city elections, similar kind of thing. That said, what I want to be very clear about is, first off, there's primaries. Okay, and so primary elections give people an opportunity to shape the candidate that's going to actually be up, and so there's that opportunity. But more important to me is, look, when the founders set up this government, one of the things that they were concerned about, and the reason that there's all of these, let's call them buffers to public opinion influence on government, is because they were concerned about stability. They didn't want, James Madison in the Federalist Papers called it the whimsical public, and didn't want the public will to be able to just push us this way and push us that way, because it may walk us right off a cliff. And people don't always have foresight, and what we think today may be a good idea. We might get more information that we decide 2 years from now is not a good idea. And so they wanted a system that had all of these institutional checks, and one of the checks is against the power of the people. And this is not, and so it's not only checks against from one branch against another branch, which is the checks and balances that most people learn against, but it's also a check on the will of the public. And so the idea is that we can't have rapid change. Instead, what we have usually is incremental change. And if you look across the course of U.S. history, we've only had rapid change in times of complete crisis. Okay, so Civil War, Great Depression, civil rights, maybe right now, and so these are the times when we've had major change. And other than that, the change is incremental. But that incremental change is directly influenced by the will of the people, just not in an immediate way. And so it moves across time. And so as we're voting, we may go and vote, and we may go and vote and win an election and get the candidate we want, but then we don't get the policy result that we want because there's all of these pushes against it. But if you continue and continue, like I talked about in the beginning, we're constantly progressing. And so the things that have been things that were debated in the public at one point are not anymore. For instance, there was a time when there was a real debate about whether high school should be publicly funded. Okay? And so there was a time when there was real debate about whether the government should pay for students to go to high school. People now, if you said, what? You're not, I don't get to go to high school unless my parents have the money to send me to a private school, they would think that's absurd, right? Like, just like now, though, you hear people who say, what, I can't, if you can't pay for college, and they're like, that's insane. Why would the government pay for college? Well, that same debate happened about high school. But people pushed and people pushed and people pushed. And now we're sitting in a time where people just assume those things are constant and always there. And so the idea here then is by voting and staying in that discourse that the slow wheels will keep moving if you just keep turning and keep turning. Long answer, but I hope.
It was a great answer.
Okay.
It gave us everything that we needed to know about how important it is to vote and to get out there and why your vote is so important. I believe in change. If you believe in change, always vote. It makes a difference.